All right, welcome to the round table. Well, it should be a round table. We'll see if everybody's done waxing their cat and join the show. Every week it's herding cats. Got a couple of things to talk about before then. So this is the new this year's shirt. These are dark gray. I know it looks blue. It's just the room I'm in. But if you want one of these, I've got t-shirts left too. First come, first serve. And the mugs are in. So finally the mugs have arrived. So if you want a mug, these are $20. DM me on either you can DM me on Telegram, you can DM me on Substack. Best way to get me is on Substack. And yeah, you can get a mug. I've got about 50 of these bad boys. So first come, first serve on those as well. But yeah, so I was gone for the last 4 days. I was up in Seattle, was recognized at a Kraken game for military service. It was actually kind of cool. I got a Seattle cop gave me a coin, which is interesting. I think there's like 4 left on duty. They've pretty much driven everybody else out. But interesting week. Remember the 19th is a key day on the satanic calendar, so look for something to happen around the 19th. It's kind of hard to miss it, just saying. So but that said, it's been an interesting week. I stayed out of the news cycle for the better part of 4 days, which was kind of nice actually. I was in and out of Twitter, shit posting on Twitter, and the narratives I saw on Twitter over the last couple of days were, let's see, today was Scott Besson talking about income taxes. And here's a question for all of you. Why are you still paying taxes? Because all your taxes are going to either one grift or another. And, and let's just spitball here. And let's just talk through all the taxes that we pay every single day. Right? So you pay income tax. You pay federal income tax. It's voluntary, but every employer sends you a W-2 and they are, an I-9 and W-2, and you can't get hired unless you fill those out and pay the federal government. So that's the first thing. So you're paying taxes on that. Depending on which state you're in, you're paying state taxes. So here in Arizona, we pay state taxes. Then you pay sales tax. Then depending on which state you're in, you're probably paying gas tax. Then you pay property taxes. Then you pay vehicle licensing taxes, right? For a new vehicle here, it's anywhere between $400 and $600 for the first 3 years or 4 years, and then it drops down to $200. And maybe when you get to 5 or 6 years old, if your vehicle's still serviceable at that point, then you can, pay $100. But either way, you're still paying vehicle taxes. And the property taxes is really a rent that you pay to the state and the county for the property that you own. Take that in. You're paying a portion up to 27% of your income goes to the federal government. 5 to 7% of your income on top of that goes to a state government. Then you pay a vehicle tax of roughly between $400 and $500 a year. Then you pay gas taxes depending on which state you're in. That can be anywhere between 50 cents and a couple of dollars a gallon. So, take a pick, right? And then on top of that, you have sales tax. And depending on which state you're in or what county you're in, those sales tax can be anywhere between 8% and 10%. So you're paying 10% on top of all the goods you're paying, which doesn't account for inflation. So you're also paying a tax because of inflation. And the inflation is adding anywhere between 10 to 15 to 20% on top of what we paid before. And then you have Scott Besson and Caroline Levitt going out and saying that, everything is awesome. And, the whole narrative is if you, and of course, you got to love Scott Besson, right? Because first of all, he's a Soros guy, which means he's a globalist, which means he's probably controlled by the same people that are trying to push the agenda now for universal basic income, for digitizing and tokenizing everything we own, and working with Larry Fink. And I don't know why Larry Fink's still walking around or why anybody listens to him, because he's the most miserable person on the planet. Talk about somebody who's miserably unhappy. There's a poster of Larry Fink. So, sorry, I bet my glasses, so it's like tilted on my head. So you've got all that going on. And Bessa coming out today saying, you should sign up for monthly taxes. You'll save yourself so much money. How about I don't sign up for any taxes and we throw all of you out of office and tar and feather you because you're all grifting on us one way or another. And that's just at the federal level. That's not the state level, right? So the state level is a grift in a whole different way, right? So you have the grift of the state politics, which the state politics I love because first it's the Somali daycare, then it's all of the consulting firms, NGOs, and all of the different private organizations that are working on the homeless problem. Then you have the hotels and some of the apartment building landlords that are grifting off of the public dollar to rent apartments to the city, to give to the homeless, to give to the illegals. And that's not even the Somali daycare fraud. And when you look at all of it, I figured out that we were paying somewhere between 57 and 62% in taxes every single year. So that means almost 8 months out of the year, you're paying the federal government before you pay yourself. And that's if you just work for a living. That's not even if you own a business. So if you own a business, you have other taxes you have to pay, right? So you have state sales tax, you have what they call TPT here, transaction processing tax, I think is what it's called. In Washington State, they have the B&O tax, and the B&O tax is completely fucking unconstitutional. But when you're a business owner, I figured out that when I included all the costs, all the fees, all of the different filings you have to do, how much it costs you to have a CPA do your taxes every single year or an accountant do your taxes every single year, you're somewhere around 73% in taxes for a business owner. And my question is, why are we still paying these guys? Why are we still listening to these people? I mean, seriously, why are we still listening to them? Every single one of them has enriched themselves the moment they went into office. And every single one of them, like Trump surrounded himself with billionaires. And how is a billionaire going to do me a favor when the IRS is still in place? They haven't deported anybody. They haven't arrested anybody. They haven't done anything about the Epstein list. And they definitively are not going to arrest anybody because the new AG or the acting AG, whatever you want to call him, has basically come out and said that there's no law against partying with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, there might not be, but there is law against trafficking, raping, torturing, and killing children. I'm pretty sure that's a felony. So why exactly should we be paying taxes to a bunch of people that are grifting anyway? And that's not even talking about Congress. That's just talking about the system. That's not even talking about the shitbags in Congress, right? So you have all these people in Congress that are grifting as well. And they used USAID. They used war chests from all these different hedge funds to build not just a war chest for themselves, but war chests for their elections. They built war chests for sexual harassment claims, and all of it's taxpayer dollars. So somebody explain to me why we haven't tarred and feathered these people and why we are still paying taxes to these people. I don't get it. And, I listened to Ari, I can't think of his last name up in Washington. He's like, I filed my extension today. I'm really mad. Well, you should be mad because every year we pay somewhere between 53 and 62% in taxes, depending on which state you're in, probably more than that in blue states. And people continue to pay taxes. You bitch about it online, but nobody just says, I'm not paying taxes. You want to know one way to get the federal government's attention? You want to know a good way to get their attention? First one is start boycotting all the big brands. Like everybody goes to Walmart. Why is Walmart affordable? Because they pay their people minimum wage and they encourage them to go on food stamps. That hasn't changed. The Walmart family is using the system to augment their benefits package. Somebody explain to me why that's okay. And Amazon did the same thing. And they pay zero in corporate taxes. Yet you and I, depending on our income level, could pay anywhere between 26 and 33% in taxes. And yet everybody pays taxes, everybody. And by the way, the insufferable rule-following idiots that will tell you just have to play in the system I'm done with that. I'm completely done with that. That's all horseshit. It's like the election system. Has anybody fixed the election system since 2020? Has anyone been arrested for election malfeasance since 2020? No. And Trump parading out there talking about why we're in a conflict with a country that we didn't have a conflict with to begin with, on the at the behest of yet another dictatorial country. Why exactly should we be paying taxes to support that? And then on top of all of that is the Somali grift, where somebody in the system organized a nationwide daycare center fraud ring and no one's been arrested for it. Somebody explain to me how that works. I mean, seriously, explain to me how that works. How is it that you can identify over 400 illegal daycare centers just in one state and no one goes to prison? And DOJ drops every single one of the investigations. Why should I pay taxes for that? I mean, really, why should I pay taxes for that? Why should I support that system? Why should I give up 33% of my income if I'm in the high income brackets to support that grift? And why should I listen to Scott Bessent, a guy who's made millions as a Soros fund manager and basically broke the real estate market in the UK to do it? Why should I pay attention to that guy? When you start to add up the pieces and just look at this from the perspective of just how much they're taking from us, your question should be, no, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I think I'm going to opt out this year. And every single time we turn around, there's some new grift. There's literally some new scandal that is completely uninvestigated and no one's arrested. And I'm not even talking about Swallowswell. Like, I can tell you what the deal is with that guy. He didn't play by the rules. He pissed somebody off. So what'd they do? Nuts and sluts. And they threw him out. That's what they're doing to him. Never mind that, he was sleeping with a Chinese spy. It's probably fine. It's probably fine. It's just a Chinese spy. Joe Biden was leaving classified information in his garage when he happened to have the Chinese over. It's probably fine. Everything's a grift, folks. Everything's a grift. Absolutely everything. And I look at it now and I'm like, I'm not paying taxes for that. Not going to support the system anymore. Because here's the reality of how the communist agenda works. And they're doing it right now in Massachusetts, Washington State, California, Oregon. They're doing it in all these states. First is they want to disarm you. So they've all passed laws to basically strip away any kind of weapons or weapon systems that can challenge the weapons that the police have and all these private armies that they've hired. The second thing is they will tax you out of existence. And that's not even DEI. DEI has basically created a hostile work environment for most white people, white men, white women, and the social guilt and the social correctness or political correctness, which was the start of it back in the 80s. All of that has led us to a place where it's a hostile environment for white men. And they're slowly doing away with the white collar work and most of the tech work. Google's laid off, Facebook's laid off, or Meta is laid off. Oracle's laid off to the tune of like 250,000 people just in the last 3 months. So when you look at all of the people that have been laid off and you look at how hard it is, again, I have friends that have been unemployed for almost 2 years. And when I look at that situation at face value, I see, and this wasn't just COVID. This goes all the way back to Obama in 2008, Bush in 2003, and Bush 1 all the way back to 1991. So this has been going on for a very long time. But what surprises me is how many white people believe that narrative. And when you couple that with the taxation And then you start to add to it the fact that, and this is how communism works. To consolidate power, they disarm you. Then they pass laws that make it illegal for you to fight back, which is what they've done in all the blue states. If you stand your ground in a blue state, chances are you're going to be charged with a felony and sent to prison, and not the person that committed the crime. And you're seeing that play out every single day. Then on top of that, then when they get to the place where they want to take away private ownership, then they just tax you out to where you can't pay the taxes. They raise your property taxes to the point where you can't possibly ever afford them, and they take your land. And they're doing it in New York City right now. This whole grift around city-run grocery stores, it's just a grift. It's a grift for state control of food, water, and housing. See how the game's played? It's just a big grift. And my question is, when do people stand up? Because Trump's agenda, and I agree with Catherine Austin Fitts. I was talking to Michael Young this morning about the Strait of Malacca, about countering the Chinese threat, about countering the famine. And they're architecting a famine right now. They really are architecting a famine. And this famine is this famine's being architected around the world. It's not just being architected here. And when you couple that with what Trump's doing, I think Catherine Austin Fitts is right. Trump's built a data center and a bunker. There was already a bunker underneath the White House. That was built under, I want to say it was built under Reagan. It may have been built under Reagan and then enhanced under Bush. But I know the Bush 2W enhanced the bunker that was underneath the White House. And I know that they've enhanced the bunker that's underneath Congress, and they've created a tunnel system, I think, that goes all the way into West Virginia. So the ballroom is really just, I think, a data center for AI. AI and consolidation of intelligence for the bunker. And I think Catherine Austin Fitts is right. I think that Trump's job is to come in and usher in the social scoring system, the control grid, and the digitized currency. Go listen to Larry Fink. Just go listen to the guy. Do you hear this guy or Bill Gates? Do you hear them changing their tune about the digital scoring system and participating in society? When, I don't know about you, but did any of you vote for Bill Gates or Larry Fink to decide whether you could participate in society? When did we elect oligarchs to decide where and when we could participate in our own lives? When did that happen? And I hear, I see Trump every day. Trump, first of all, Trump's not a fucking superhero. I don't want to hear that shit anymore. I'm sick of hearing that. I heard that shit today. I don't want to hear it again. Trump's just like everybody else. He's somebody's bitch. Whose bitch is he? Is he Miriam Adelson's bitch? Is he Netanyahu's bitch? Whose bitch is he? He's somebody's bitch because he got to office when there was statistically no way he could have got into office in 2024. In fact, we were all gearing up for a civil war because nobody thought he was going to get elected. We all thought we were going to have to deal with Harris or start an insurgency. So somebody explain to me when the oligarchs were elected the judge, jury, and executioner for the entire population of the planet. I really want to know that answer because I don't see Trump doing anything to mitigate that. DOJ sure as fuck isn't doing anything. So the question really boils down to who elected these people? And it should make your blood boil when you see a guy like Bill Gates who's run around this planet and killed hundreds of thousands of people. He's probably the worst mass murderer in the history of the planet. And he's still running around talking about scoring systems. You see how it should make your blood boil? The whole thing's a grift. And then when you start looking at it from the perspective of the IRS, you're going, why am I paying into this system? The only thing I get from this system is I get screwed over. I mean, gas prices are higher. Food prices are ridiculous. The price of meat is exorbitant now. It's probably priced most people out of the market. And when you look at fresh food, they're messing with fresh food now too. So in produce, they're putting vaccines into produce. Again, who elected these people to do that, and who made that okay? Your elected officials. They voted and passed a bill that allows this to happen. So they don't represent us either. They're privately owned individuals in public spots. So again, why do you pay into the IRS? So my point of saying all this is everything is a grift. And I listen to Scott Bessent. I listen to uh, especially when I listen to Tucker and Candace Owens, right? I I see this narrative building. And this narrative is that government is no longer representative of the people, so we need to have somebody step in that's not biased, blah, 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 the bankers. That's one narrative. That's one narrative I see. The other narrative that I'm seeing right now is this UFO narrative, and that's still prevalent. In fact, I was watching on Netflix last night. I was watching the three body problem, and if you go back to Obama's administration, he references that book in at least 8 different speeches. He references that book in several town halls. He references it in a number of different venues, and he's referenced it since he's left office too. And it's interesting when you watch it, because it is the whole show is about I guess the best way to describe it is it's an alien race coming to the earth, and they were communicated with in the 70s and told to come here by somebody who's basically sold out the human race. And this is a race that was in a solar system with basically three different suns, for lack of a better word. So one sun came close to their planet, made their planet dry. Another sun was farther away and made their planet inhabitable. At any time in their orbit, one sun is prevalent over the other. So they always have these cycles of these longer disaster cycles and shorter prosperity cycles. Anyway, this species adapted. Somebody in China made communication with them and sent them a message to come. And of course, they're on their way. It's going to take them 400 years at 0.1 light speed to get here. And that's season 1. The human, there's humans that are believers and call this race the Lord, or God. And then you have regular humans like me that are trying to figure out how to fight this more advanced race. And it's interesting because I'm seeing this narrative build in multiple different shows now on both Netflix, on Vimeo, on Amazon Prime, and it started back in 2023. I was doing some research today and went back on when these narratives started. It was back in 2023 is when they really started. And when you look at the bigger picture of that narrative, it's developed now over a 10-year period. It started, oddly enough, under Trump, the first term with Trump, and it's continued on. And this is why I say this is a script that's being played out, because it's crosses party aisles where the disclosures are coming out, right? So Trump talked about aliens. Putin talked about aliens in the first term, and then they went into Biden. There was some talk about it, but it was really more about moving the communist ball forward. And then once you get through that, now it's back to Trump, and now it's about disclosure. Now it's about aliens have been here, they're interdimensional beings. So that's that narrative. Then the third narrative is, and this one, you got to give credit to the Iranians. They have, and I've said this before, if you watch me on Tommy's podcast with Watkins and General Holt and EM, and you've watched me on other shows, you would have heard me say this, even on Crypto Rich. When you do influencing operations, you have to bring the public along, right? You make the big fat claim that Israel is 2 weeks away from nuclear weapons. Okay. But where's the evidence that to convince the public that this is real? And then how do you take them from point A to point B? By the way, that's tape on my finger. So how do you take it from point B to point A to point B? And you have to bring the public along as you go. You can't just say we're going to go in and do this or not say anything and then black out the entire media and give your enemy a chance to influence the population, which is exactly what Iran has done. There are people in the US right now that believe the Iranian government are the good guys. And just like in Ukraine, just like in the first and second Gulf Wars, you can't give the enemy an opportunity to disrupt your influencing operation. And that's exactly what they've done. They've given the enemy the ability to establish a beachhead with the public and public opinion, and they've done nothing to counter it. In fact, the messaging has been so bad from both Israel and the US that no one buys their story across the planet. That is a strategic and a tactical loss that you will never recover from, because influencing and information operations is way different than kinetic operations. The situation on the battlefield, we could be, as Trump said, we could be completely obliterating their planet and their population and their culture, whatever, right? We could be completely obliterating them. But the point is, if you don't bring the American public along and the population of the world isn't on board for what you're doing, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter how well you do on the battlefield. You're still going to lose, because the only thing that the Iranians have to do is survive. They don't have to do anything else. They just have to survive. They just have to get to the other side without regime change, without being lynched by their own people, and without being bombed to death, which is doable in a mountainous country like Iran. So at the end of the day, what have we really accomplished? Did we accomplish regime change? No. Did we completely obliterate their rocket program? No. Did we disrupt their communications? Yeah. Did we destroy their infrastructure? Yeah. But really all we did was create 90 million insurgents. So how is that a strategic victory? And when the American public is completely on board with saving the Iranian regime, no matter how awful they might be, you've lost the war. And that's where we are. So the other narrative I'm seeing is that Iran is really the good guys and Israel and the US are the bad guys. And you can look at that narrative however you want to look at it, but that's the narrative. And it's unfortunate because none of these narratives lead to this, golden age that Trump talked about. Anybody seen that happening? Are your food prices any cheaper? Is your gas cheaper? Is the election system, is that any more secure? Is the, law enforcement community, are they any more robust? Is the civil liberties that you lost under the Patriot Act and all the other things they passed since 2003, any of that stuff changed? No. It's the same exact foreign policy, domestic policy, economic policy, social policies we've had for generations. Trump is no different. There's not one thing he's done since he's been in office that has moved the ball downfield permanently. I mean, even the deportations are fiction, because I agree with Catherine Austin Fitts on this one, that the deportations are being used to justify digital ID. Well, if you really want to deport these people, we need to give everybody that's an American citizen digital ID. Really? Really? I need a digital ID so that I can travel, but you can't vote ID checks and proof of American citizenship for the elections. But I have to prove that I'm an American citizen to fly around the country. Yeah, it's all horseshit. I don't buy a fucking word of any of that. I don't buy a word of anything going on in Iran. I don't buy a word of this. And it's like this conversation about the city of London, right? I know that there's, at least 4 people that think that this is a big Trump fight against city of London. I don't see any empirical evidence of any of that. I still see the same group of assholes that were trying to create this digital system back in 2020 using COVID, doing the same shit right now, only Trump's in office for the second time. And remember who was on shift when all this started? It was Trump. Operation Warp Speed, it was fucking Trump. So I don't see a change in anything right now. What I see is the last year was delay, 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 obfuscate, delay, more obfuscation, replace Pam Bondi, more obfuscation. And I don't see the mass deportations. I see a lot of people have self-deported, but that doesn't mean they've gotten rid of anybody that they put in housing. Remember, they flew people in. They had airline flights every single night. They were bringing kids in every single night. And where'd those kids go? Really, where'd they go? Who brought them in? You notice how Trump talks about, well, we found all these kids. Who brought the kids in? Who was running the op? Who was managing the operation? Where did the money come from? You notice how you never get those answers? Those answers that are key, like Epstein, who was running the op? Who was running the op? Everybody went to the island, the list. Who ran the op? Who was running it? You notice how you never hear that? But you hear shit like Trump doesn't want to release the list because his friends are on it. Okay, who ran the op? Really, who ran the op? Who funded it? Was it just a money laundering operation that was also a blackmail operation and a trafficking operation, or was it something bigger? Notice how you don't get those answers either. No, we shouldn't talk about it. We should move on. Look, Iran's 2 weeks away from nuclear weapons. The whole thing's a grift, which brings me back to why the fuck are you paying taxes? If the whole thing is a grift, you're being lied to. And everything, I don't believe anything. I believe nothing right now. Nothing. I don't believe the Ukraine narrative. I don't believe the Iran narrative. I don't believe what's going on the ground is real. I'm not even sure what I believe about Ukraine is real. I definitely don't think that Trump and Putin and Xi have this big, coalition and this détente, and they're working together to deal with the Bilderberg group or to deal with the city of London, whoever the fuck that is. I don't believe anything right now. I don't see any evidence of anybody being brought to justice for anything. And you have the DNI who has come out publicly and said Obama, Brennan, Clapper, Hayden, Rice, Holder, Clintons, Jake Tapper were all involved, along with Adam Schiff, in this impeachment hoax, in the January 6th hoax. But has anybody been arrested? We're a year and a half into the new administration, and no one's been arrested. And now I find out that all of the fraud investigations in Minnesota, Washington, Massachusetts, and all the other states where the Somali fraud was taking place, they've all been dropped. Now, I don't know how true that is. Just like I don't know how true any of the kinetic actions are in the Gulf right now. I don't even know how true the ceasefire is. And when I look at the bigger picture of this, and I put together what Trump's saying, which is Friday, it's the big fat claim. We're going to destroy the entire country's infrastructure. And then on Monday, Sunday, it's, open the strait, you crazy bastards. And then on Monday, we're going to destroy your civilization. And then Tuesday, it's everything's fine. It's all fine. Everything's awesome. I don't believe any of it. I don't know who the city of London is. I don't know who, I really don't know who Netanyahu really controls and who he doesn't. The Israeli government has a huge and substantial coercion or influencing factor on our government. And then I heard today that there's a deep rift between Trump and JD Vance over Iran. Okay, I don't know how much of that's true. And the fact that we're completely blocked out from what's going on the ground should tell you everything you need to know. Because when we went into Desert Storm 1, when we went into the Gulf the second time, Operation Iraqi Freedom, again, great bullshit name, the press was on the ground. They were embedded with the troops. You don't see any of that. And our press doesn't, we don't have journalists anymore. We didn't have journalists back then. We had covert CIA operatives that were in journalistic positions, and now they're just CIA operatives. And the gaslighting is off the charts. So my point of all of this is, when I go back to my taxes and I look at the fact that if I don't pay my taxes, the IRS will put a lien on my house. They will garnish my wages. They will put me into court and confiscate my assets. But yet everybody that's in the system can rape, torture, murder, money launder, basically openly steal from the American public. So why am I paying into that system? When you look at the bigger picture, you're like, it's all a grift. And again, I don't know what the fuck to believe. I don't trust any of the narratives I see because they're all nonsense. And even the UFO, I don't even trust the UFO narrative. Like, it's unbelievable to me that the president and elected officials in Congress are talking about UFOs, but nobody seems to have anything other than a grainy picture and some whistleblowers testimony. Okay, if they work inside the federal government, they're not a whistleblower. That's managed disclosure. If they are part of the system as an asset, it's not disclosure, it's managed disclosure. And it's not a whistleblower. And everybody I've seen, from the senators all the way back to the whistleblowers, they're all federal assets. Every single one of them. So why would I believe that narrative if the same people that were raping, torturing, and murdering children are running the system, are telling me that UFOs are real? Why would I believe that? And if nobody's on the ground to corroborate the story in Iran and in the Persian Gulf, why would I believe that story? And if I can't tell you who they are when it comes to the City of London or whoever it is, the elite in Europe or the elite in the US or the Epstein class or whoever you want to call them, if I don't know who they are, then why should I believe that story? I don't believe anything I'm seeing. I don't believe anything I'm seeing. Well, I don't believe anything I'm saying either. I don't believe anything that's being fed to us right now. And, when I talk about, and I go on shows and people are talking about Trump's doing this or Trump's doing that, I don't have any proof of that. Trump's actions just in the last 2 weeks are so unpresidential and so undiplomatic and so unstatesmanlike that I don't know why anybody would take him seriously. And there's a difference between brinksmanship and statesmanship. If you're going to do brinksmanship, which is what Trump has been doing, right? He's been reflecting the Iranian messaging right back in their face. Okay, that's a tactic. And it probably had the desired effect. But at what cost? At what cost of the credibility you had left is it worth to do that? Or are you purposely burning your reputation at the behest of others so that you can set conditions to replace yourself with somebody else? None of those options pan out well for the U.S. None of those options give me any confidence in what I'm seeing and hearing. None of those options tell me that I'm dealing with a legitimate person in a legitimate place trying to do legitimate things, which is the key of any influencing operation. There has to be some credibility in the system for people to latch into and to buy into in order to believe the narrative that you're trying to sell them. If you don't believe anything that they're telling you, you're not going to buy into any of the big fat claims, right? If the big fat claim is Iran was 2 weeks away from nuclear weapons, show me the proof. Show me where they were building nuclear weapons. Show me the proof. Show me where the missiles are, where the warheads are, where the enrichment plants are. You notice I haven't seen any of that? You don't see any of it. It's just this nebulous Nazi narrative of they have this. We need to stop them. I'm the only president with the balls to do it. Okay? Where's the evidence of that? Remember they tried to feed us weapons of mass destruction back in 2003 and it was debunked fairly quickly, but they kept the lie going for another 10 years and they said, yeah, you're right. They weren't there. Was anybody held accountable for that? This is the same people telling us the same thing yet again. And I'm supposed to buy these narratives? I don't. I don't know what is real and what's not real. I can tell you what's not real. NASA going back to the moon. That was 100% bullshit. I don't buy a fucking word of that. And I know, Flight Fighter was on there. Hey, I met the mission commander. I took him to task. We spent time in Houston. I served with him. Great. But let's replay the Gemini and Apollo programs and go back in history and go back in YouTube and look at the capsules from Apollo that landed in the water. And then tell me that this is real. You're telling me that we've had brute force rockets for over 70 years. And we still, NASA, our space agency, the experts, the people who did this, the people who put somebody on the moon, the same people that not only took technologies that were basically plated wire and, vacuum tubes and put people on the moon and brought them home, but then lost the tapes, the most important period in human history, putting somebody on a different planet, and they lost the tapes. Those same people that operate the International Space Station, which can't seem to catch a satellite or UFOs to save their lives, those people, they use the same brute force rocket, the same capsule, and the same water landing to have somebody circle the moon and come back. And oh, by the way, they didn't see any satellites either. And whoever that retard is, that the female that they put on that mission, don't let her speak. Do not ever let her speak again. You want to talk about giving I find retards enough material for a lifetime? Just put her on stage again. What a moron. It's like they tried to sell us the Star Trek Academy version of the moon landings in 2026 using the exact same script. And did I mention that Elon Musk can launch a rocket pretty much once a month and then catch the rocket in midair? But yet NASA still has to drop a capsule in the ocean and the US Navy has to go out there with the key to open it up. And I'm supposed to believe that's real? Really? 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 Man. I mean, no offense to Flake. I mean, he did what I would have done. I would have got to taken that guy to task. But when you watch the videos, you listen to him talk, you watch all the fanfare, it's all Apollo. It's all Gemini. It's the exact same parades they did in the 60s. They're just replaying the script. It's the exact same shit. Stuffed and packaged and sent back the exact same way it was sent back in the 60s and early 70s. And I don't know why anybody would buy it. I just don't, because I don't buy it. Again, I don't buy anything I'm seeing. When I look at how the game's supposed to be played, and I look at how the game's been played, and I look at how much effort and logistics was put into messaging prior to 2016. There was a tremendous amount of logistics that went into any influencing operation. And now it's like they don't care at all. And they don't care if you believe it, if you don't believe, they don't care. And I'm amazed at how many people see all of this going on and still think the system is okay. Oh, it's fine. The pendulum will swing the other way. We'll have fair elections again. How is that going to happen? You have literal communists in at least 8 or 11 states right now that are actively trying to consolidate power. And yet you have people that still buy into those narratives. I'm telling you. I look at this big picture and I ask myself, why am I still participating in this system? This system is beyond dead. It's been dead for 10 years. It's just now somebody needs to pronounce it dead. And they just haven't. And they won't. And that's unfortunate. I mean, somebody brought up the Virginia elections. Look at what that governor's done in 2 months. Just passed a bill and signed a bill into law that basically says, doesn't matter who wins the election in this state, all of the electoral votes will go to the winner of the popular vote in the federal election, which is exactly what they wanted to do before. They just, instead of disbanding the Electoral College, what did they do? They passed a law to go around it. And somebody tell me how the election system is going to benefit the American people when the most heavily populated states will carry the vote every time. That's why the Electoral College is in place in the first place. Which brings me back to the IRS. Why would you pay your taxes into a system that clearly is fucking you? Really? I mean, that's full circle. The tax rate, the grift, the bullshit narratives, the fact that nobody in our government works for the American people anymore. Why would you participate in that system? Why? I mean, really, why would you participate in that system? Why would you believe anything that these people have told you when you were just told, not even 2 months ago, they're all pedophiles? They're all controlled pedophiles. Why would you support that system? Seriously. It's the question of the day. I'm not the only one asking it. And the only way you're going to get their attention is if it's mass noncompliance. I mean, look at what's going on in Ireland right now. Mass noncompliance. If nobody follows the rules don't exist. And we're rapidly approaching a culmination point. And I look at what Trump's doing right now, and I think he's actively trying to destroy the economy. I think he's actively trying to destroy the dollar. I think Scott Bessent is actually trying to destroy the dollar. They're actually trying to set conditions for the next Bretton Woods. And God forbid it be China become their reserve currency. Because China they don't do anything above board. Everything is, you think it's a grift here. Wow. Yeah. And my point of saying all this is, I don't believe any narratives right now. I don't believe anything I'm seeing. I don't believe anything I'm hearing. I don't believe anything that's coming out of the government. I don't believe anything that's coming out of the press. I don't believe anything that's coming out of social media because there's so many bots, there's so much AI, and they're not adhering and they're not using the same rules. They're just flooding the system with garbage. So my point of saying all of this is, number one, you need to be ready for anything, because the other narrative that came up this week, which I was going to touch on earlier, and now's a good time, is this cyber attack swarms or the cyber pandemics. That's making the rounds again. And, most of these are probably just fear porn narratives to keep people amped up, but you never can tell. And I just published I did a high level show today, a 30-minute show on radios, high level on radios, the tactical, medium range, long range radio systems. That's on Substack. You can catch that. But be prepared for anything. If you don't have alternative comms, you should probably start looking into it. And it's mainly for your resilient community. It's not for, I'm going to talk to Europe. It's not the point of it. The point of it is be ready for any contingency so you can coordinate with people to move around. And don't buy into anything right now. I don't buy into anything. I don't believe Trump's playing 5D chess. I don't believe that there's just the city of London. I think there's a lot more players involved in this. I think the whole game is to architect famine and its population reduction. I think that's what the end state is for all of this. I think that everything we're seeing is a distraction away from the fact that the Western world is run by pedophiles, and the fact that there's been no accountability for that should make everyone's blood boil. I think that all the narratives that are being fed to us right now are all nonsense. I don't know. I don't believe anything with the UFO stuff. I think it's entertaining as hell, but I don't believe any of it. So my point of all of this is now's the time to start, if you haven't started, being prepared for a contingency, because we're in the window for some kind of a major contingency. They're losing public support. They've lost the information war. They're not getting the cultural narrative back. They're definitively not going to get public support back. There's never going to be trust in this government again, not until people are perp walked. And DOJ is completely on their ass. So you're not going to see accountability. So when you look at all of those things, and then you couple that with the amount of just criminality that's been perpetrated against the human race by big pharma and by, one various middle management dictator or another, I guarantee you we're ripe for something. And could it be the 19th? I don't know. But if I listen to Colonel Watkins, then she will tell you that the 19th has been a series of attack on April 19th throughout history. I believe her. So be ready for anything. And don't take anything at face value. The 48-hour rule applies to everything right now. And stuff I saw on Saturday, I'm still waiting to see what the debunking is going to look like when it's actually debunked. And there's a bet going right now that hostilities will resume with Iran by Sunday. I agree. We'll see. I don't mind being wrong. I just call shit as I see it. And, I've had a bunch of shills, because the shills, this is what I love about this business is, doesn't matter what channel you're on. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter what venue you're on. There's always a shill that has to comment. They have to watch your whole show. They hate you, but they have to watch your whole show. They have to tell you how awful you are as a person, but they have to watch your whole show and all of your shows to comment on and tell you, well, you said this before and that was bullshit. Okay. I call it like I see it. There's the way things we want it to be. There's the way things are. And there's the what so. And the what so is, this is the way we think it is. This is the way we want it, but this is how things really are. The what so. And the what so is, we don't know what's real. We don't know who's running the show. And we do know that there's no accountability. And until there's accountability, you can't correct the system. Full stop. And until Americans get out of Twitter and TikTok and actually boots on the ground start dislodging these people from key positions, we're going to continue to see the consolidation power. And I hope that Americans get off their ass and do it in a nonviolent way versus kinetic, because kinetic is a whole different realm. So keep that in mind, but be ready for anything. And I mean anything, because we're in the window. And we're supposed to do a roundtable tonight. I ended up monologuing for most of it. I'll be back on, I'll be back this weekend doing, I want to do radio programming this weekend for Substack using Chirp and the Biofang DM32, as well as the AR-152 radios. So if you want to know how to program radios, I'll even do the TYTs. The links for all those radios, I gave you both Brush Beaters, brushbeater.store, and I gave you Amazon The Shit Fairy for both those radios. I will tell you the Brush Beater is going to be cheaper for the DM32 and AR-152 radios. The TYT radios, those are going to be cheaper on Amazon. And I went through 3 different radios today. You can get HF radios from brush beater, they're cheaper too. So if you're interested in the comms, check that out. This video I did today was high level, just talking about different types of radios. Next, I'll get into frequency planning and how to determine frequencies for your local area. And then I'll talk about programming radios. So you'll get to see how all that's done. And keep in mind, the ham radio business that you see through the FCC and through the Ham Radio Society, that's all pre grid down. The stuff I'm talking about is post grid down. So keep that nugget in mind, because I don't talk about the situation from the I don't talk about radios from the perspective of we're still in a grid up, we still have to abide by all the FCC rules. I'm talking about it from the perspective of, if the grids goes down, here's the comms I'm going to have, here's the radios I carry, here's how I have them set up, here's the tools to set them up, this is what it looks like, and I'll show you both. I'll show you programming the radio where it works, programming the radio with the same cable where it doesn't work. And you're going to run into that, especially with Biofangs. You could have the same cable for 3 different radios and it'll work on one and it won't work on 2 others. So there is some nuances to it. It's almost an art form. Anyway, the point is that I'm addressing this from post grid down, radios that you carry in the vehicle, radios you don't carry in the vehicle, radios that you can carry with you, radios for your community, long haul communications. And look, I'm not going to get into all the nuances of the ham radio, 2 meter, 5 meter, 10 meter band. That all that bullshit is the radio guys. I'm going to talk about, these are radios that are affordable. And my perspective on comms is very simple. I buy what is good enough for the area I'm in and for the type of communication I'm going to do. I'm not going out buy the best and the most high-speed radios and the most high-speed gear. 1, because shit breaks, and 2, it's expensive. And most people live on a budget. So I'm doing this from the perspective of people live on a budget, and most of these radios are Chinese anyway. I think China is the only one that really makes radios besides Motorola, and I think those are made in Taiwan or China. So anyway, I know there's going to be somebody comes in with fucking radio guy that can't help himself that's going to come out of the woodwork and correct all of my radio talk. I'll just tell you up front, you can go fuck yourself, because I hate radio guys for that reason. It's all clicks and hoots and, 5 meter, 2 meter. What fucking frequency and does the radio work? God. Anyway, so look for that this weekend. I did a couple of videos last week before I left, talking about bags, mags, and slings. There's a lot of options for all of those, so check that out. And again, my perspective on all of these videos is very simple. This is the average person going to the gun store or to the tactical shop, or they're online and they're buying stuff and they get a bunch of boxes in the mail, or the shitberry drops a bunch of boxes. You have to open them up and figure out what goes on your weapon, how to carry all this stuff, how to put it in your vehicle. And again, your vehicle's about real estate. You have so much real estate for people, for gear, for food, for water, right? At some point, you're going to be on the move. So I'm trying to give people perspective on that. I mean, if you want the hua cool guy shit, I got all these high-speed attachments. I do all these cool things in close quarter, CQB. Go watch Grand Thumb. Go watch the guys at any one of those, hua tactical guys. They'll walk you through all that. That's not the kind of shooting I'm doing. 1, I don't bend that way anymore. And 2, that shit's heavy. And the older I get, the less shit I want to carry. So I'm addressing this from the perspective of the average citizen and what they're going to be looking at when the boxes show up. And if you And again, I did an AR video yesterday and published it. And there's 3 perspectives for ARs. So I had a question while I was gone, what's the best deal for building an AR? Should I buy an upper and lower? Should I buy all the parts, or should I buy a kit? And my answer is whatever your budget can afford, do that. ARs are Legos, so it's a bunch of pieces. It's all most of the parts are fairly cheap still. So you can put together an AR for under $900. You can get them down to $600. Just depends on how much you can spend and how much time you have on. You will have to have tools to build an AR. And if you get all that shit and you can't figure it out, send me an email at steve@republicarmament.com and I will walk you through building your AR. If you want to send it to me, you can send it to me and I'll enter it into my book and I'll put it together for you and ship it back to you. Or I'll fix the stuff that's broken and ship it back to you after I function test it. So it's going to cost you money because you're going to have to ship it. Then you have to pay me per hour to put it together. But you can get it done the right way if you can't figure it out on your own. There's tons of University of YouTube videos on how to build ARs. So there's lots of help out there to do that. But when it comes to which AR manufacturer, that question's been asked 100 times. There's Palmetto, there's BCM, which is Bravo Company, there's Daniel Defense, there's Aero Precision, LWRC. There's a host of different companies making ARs. It's personal preference. I use Aero Precision because their stuff's cheap. I haven't had any issues with their stuff. I've done Bravo Company, Daniel Defense. I've done LWRC. I use Black Rifle Arms, gas piston uppers on almost all my rigs. So yeah. So there's tons of options for buying kits and buying equipment. It's personal preference, and really it boils down to what your budget is. So, but if you have questions about that, feel free to DM me on Substack or email me with AR questions. I can help there. Somebody asked me about ammo. I don't ship ammo. One, it costs me money in shipping to get it. Then it costs me money to ship it. If I can cut out the middleman and ship it right to you, I'll figure out if I can, figure out how to do that. I'll do that. Otherwise, I think your best bet for ammo is sgammo.com. They are family run. They're in Arkansas. They are, to me, they're the best price. And they make things right. And they ship really, really quickly. So they're my choice for ammo. As far as parts go, Geisley, Timney, there's a bunch of different vendors that make good triggers and make good trigger guards. I mean, Magpul is probably your go-to for all the furniture and for stocks, etc. Optics just depends on your budget. EOTech's really expensive. There's a lot of different options there. So again, boils down to your budget. But any questions, shoot them over. I'll be back tomorrow with more radio shit. Until then, God bless. One team, one fight.